Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on Daybreak. Now let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper where Atiku, Soyinka, Falana and others pick holes in Tinubu's speech. The writers are saying you can't serve bullets where bread is pleaded. That's the Nobel laureate saying that Soyinka broadcast did not address protesters' demands according to human rights lawyer, that's Femi Falana. The Northern Elders Forum are saying no mention of insecurity in the North. He is lacking to anti-masses policy, or he is sticking to anti-masses policy. That's according to the Afenifere group. You find the details on the president's speech and reactions of the protest afterwards on page 3, 4, 17, 25 and 38. Below the major story there you see an infography of what is going on, the deaths, the toll, the police reported cases, injuries and all of that in the northern part of Nigeria where the violent protests took over. Below that infography, we see president out of touch with reality. Protesters say rally continue today, Monday. Admission entry age, JAM raises alarm over false affidavits, age adjustment. The NCC extends NIN and SIM verification deadline. Man jailed 1 year for stealing 7 modules of rice. Below the headmas there is still on the hunger protest. Bereaved families mourn. Algon writes Finance commissioners demands payment for July allocation and how demonstrators wreaked havoc on hinterlands. Now, these are some of the stories on the Daily Trust newspaper there. Let's move on to the Vanguard, where protests, Tinubu broadcast fell short of expectations. Federal government reforms have not brought promise, renewed hope. That's according to the Catholic bishop. Hardship protests, some people want to blackmail me. That's according to the former presidential candidates. Or the presidential candidates of the LP in the 2023 election. Stop bloodshed. Ex-ADC presidential candidate Atiku begs protesters. We have IBB disowns post-endorsing military rule. Household struggles to cope with galloping food prices. Now, these are some of the stories that you'd find on the Vanguard newspaper. Let's move on quickly. Take a look at the Guardian newspaper this morning. What the story is about: national broadcast outrage over rehash of old policies, threats, failure to suit protesters. Protest 52 billion naira worth of looting, a setback to entrepreneurs and investments. Import duty FX rises to 1,618 naira per dollar, despite Tinubu's pledge or pledges. Cancel autonomy, or your chairman pull out of Algon to form new association. Nationwide protests, dialogue remain best option, says Governor Diri. Livestock Ministry must end open grazing and conflict. Kano Judiciary probes looting of court as protest continues. Poor internet service lingers as NCC denies new tariff. Now, these are the stories you find on Guardian. Quickly, let's dive into the front pages with our reviewer this morning, Suleiman Ubagaya, joining us to dissect these front pages. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Ubagaya. All right, so let's start with the president's speech. I just have to hear your take on this situation. We saw the Northern Elders Forum discuss or point out their concern about the president's speech not including one of the major problems for northern Nigeria and why there was a massive turnout of protesters from the north, which is the insecurity. What is your take on that?
Okay, quickly. I just watched your program with the SSA to the president, as well as a representative of the civil society organization. And somehow I agree to an extent with what the SSA said, that there is no speech that is holistic anywhere in the world. Certainly, there are so many gaps that have not been addressed by the president, one of which fundamentally is the issue of security. But then the other issues also that have not been addressed, I think, are deliberate. I think the president was just trying to be strategic. I'm not his spokesman. I'm not a member of this government, so I am free to say what I am now saying. Obviously, the government, the presidency choose to couch the speech the way it did so as not to cause disillusionment within the security cycles. There is something about security. When you hear the president himself admitting to certain things, it tends to create disillusionment. It tends to create a feeling of defeat a pillar of victory for enemies of the nation. There is always the feeling that the presidency, our government or our security forces should be positive. What comes out of their mouths should be positive. It may be termed propaganda, but then this is a positive propaganda. So I think the president's strategy, from my own perspective, is that he is trying to do more of action than maybe engaging in rhetoric. We are part of sort of rhetorics from this government, from the previous administrations. What we want is action. So obviously, from my own thinking, the government is being deliberate about its inability, about the president's inability to directly address some of the issues that have led to young men and women protesting in the streets of Nigeria.
The protesters are saying that they are insisting this protest would continue, and saying the president is out of touch with reality. Do you see it from that angle?
Yeah, honestly, in a way, he is, because there are issues that he has not really addressed. Issues like cost of governance. These are some of the issues I really expected him to directly talk about, like the 47 ministers that he has appointed. Somebody, a member of the civil society organization, had suggested that, okay, why don't you reduce them to 37? The constitution says there must be one minister per state, an FCT. So that is 37. You can simply reduce it to 37. I'm sorry to say the ministers representing my own state of Kano, I don't even know what they are doing, honestly, with all due respect to them. There are so many ministers that are totally ineffective. So why don't you simply relieve them of their job and appoint those that can really do the job? This kind of thing shouldn't be based on appointment, on sentiment. Then the second issue about cost of governance is the issue of his own presidential aircraft. Up to now, the government has not come out to really tell us how much the new aircraft, the cost of the new aircraft is. You understand, people are talking about billions of naira, hundreds of billions of naira, and that is insensitivity taken too far. There are also other issues to do with purchase of vehicles for legislators, and that has been happening not just at the federal level, but also at the state levels. But fundamentally, I like the fact that the president has come out to tell us that he has given our governors 570 billion naira in special allocation, and what are these governors doing with it? So the government, or rather the presidency, has a responsibility not just to be dishing out money. Of course, I heard the president also talking about giving monies to 600,000 nano businesses. That is very good. But what of the implementation? Has the president checked to ensure that those nano businesses are the real beneficiaries at the end of the day? Is he sure that those nano businesses were not set up at the last minute, maybe by our legislators or by some senior people in his government, so that they benefit? Because that is the trend. These things have continued to happen. At the end of the day, the real beneficiary, the people, the sons and daughters of nobody, end up benefiting from nothing.
Indeed. And hence the reason why the president needs to hold people accountable.
Exactly.
For this. We saw how there was a lot of call for the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, saying there was lack of accountability or holding people accountable. All right, let's take a look at Algon. We've been pushing for local government autonomy for the longest time, but so far it seems they're already having internal crisis. Says Algon Rights Finance Commissioner demands payment for July allocation. And also, I think I've read somewhere talking about one of them pulling out and wanting to create another. Do you think that's a problem we should be having at this point?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of the question.
Okay. I think someone here made mention that a person from that particular, from the Algon Association, is leaving the Algon in order to create another association that would represent the local government. So do you think that's a division that we need now? And why is it that so far there's been a delay on, the July allocation?
You see, the governors have really tested blood and they don't want to let go. So they are going to do anything to divide Algon and to cause all sort of division. And the divided house is a house, in Pelua. So obviously this thing is coming from the governors, and definitely it is not the right thing. It is not what we need at this point in time, when the Supreme Court has given us one of the greatest gifts, under this democracy, that is local government autonomy. everything that should be done must be done by the Tinubu administration to ensure that this pronouncement by the highest court of the land is given life, to ensure that these governors do not continue to appropriate illegally allocations that are statutory allocations that are due to our local governments. That's my take.
All right, let's take a look at education, where admission entry aid, JAM raises alarm over false affidavit and age adjustment. Why do you think, corruption has eaten deep into a system that even now parents are keen into teaching a child at the youngest age to, mess up with their age?
Well, you see, honestly, I'm one of those who disagree with the Minister of Education at the National Council of Education meeting about 2 weeks ago or thereabouts. He mentioned the fact that the admission age for universities must be 18 years from this year. Then he later changed it to the following year, that is next year. I do not think it makes any sense, because there are children who are gifted and who can go to university at a very much young age. And parents, of course, to answer your question specifically, parents are bearing the brunt. They are paying school fees in several thousands or even millions in some cases. So they want shortcuts, honestly. That is just facing reality. They want shortcuts. When their brilliant child is in primary 5, they want that child to jump primary 6 and go to secondary 1. And probably when he is in SS2, they probably will want him to take YA, because they know he or she has the capacity to pass. So these are the issues. And the government, I believe, should remove the restriction about age. Let it continue.
I think they did. I think they did.
No, they have not. They only said they are going to start implementing it next year. And this is why people are now falsifying their age. Because you see, there are children who are maybe 16 years this year, and they are going to do due for
a lot of the WAEC students right now are 16. A lot of them at this point.
Exactly. So they won't be 18 next year, which means your own child has to wait for a year or 2 at home. And what will that be, child? That will call, there will be idleness and all the dangers,
True. Drugs and all of that.
Exactly.
Indeed. Let's quickly take a look at this. NCC extends NIN and SIM verification deadline. Now, we've seen how network service have been affected all through this protest period. And the NCC came out cables and network provider came out to blame the protests on it. But then protesters are saying, but at night it works. So people are thinking it's just a time that they're just looking for excuses, because this is not the first time we know that Nigerian network have suffered a setback. So what do you think about this situation of the blame game?
Well, you see, this thing about NIN SIM verification, I think government has not really gotten it right. I remember when the former Minister of Communication, Sheikh Bentami, or Professor Bentami, to put it appropriately, brought up this policy, he promised that it was going to impact positively on national security. Unfortunately, it has not, at least so far. When people get kidnapped, kidnappers don't use their own phones. They use they use the phones of the victims to make calls. So at the end of the day, they could never be traced.
The aim has
then the issue of it's only natural that the security services will do what they are doing now. In some countries, when there are riots, they even cut off internet completely. In Nigeria, they have not done that completely, but of course, businesses are suffering, and the economy is suffering more, because in the modern age we are in now, there must be, internet for us to really run businesses effectively. So government should find a way to simply address the real issues. These are cosmetics issues. Address the real issues. Give hope to these young men and women that are on the streets. Honestly, because I'm afraid of a situation where if they are forced off the streets by force, I'm afraid of a spontaneous reaction. I do not hope it happens.
We hope it does not. We hope it does not, because we've seen people's reaction to the president's speech and it has aggravated people more. But we hope, Nigerians are more sensible in handling this matter more calmly, because we all know violence cannot ever be the solution. Thank you so much for joining us and dissecting the front pages of the national dailies. We always appreciate talking to you.
My pleasure, always. Thank you.
That was Suleiman Obagaya discussing the front page. Thank you so much for staying with us all through the 2 hours of show this morning. Please do stick around. At the top of the hour, Emmanuel Fashemi will bring you 360 Sport. Please, if you're going out to protest, do stay safe. I am Sumaya Abubakar. To have a lovely Monday.